Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Lauren Feldman, and I'm here today with John Arensmeyer, who is founder and CEO of Small Business Majority, an advocacy group for businesses and entrepreneurs. Welcome back, John.
Good to be here, Lauren.
It's great to have you. So, John, we are recording this on Friday, April 4th. It has been quite a week. On Wednesday, when President Trump announced his tariffs, he pronounced it a historic day that would long be remembered, and I think he got that right. I'm eager to hear kind of what you've been hearing, what you think what this is all going to mean for small businesses. I know it's early, but any thoughts?
Well, Lauren, we've been hearing fear and concerns for months, even before Trump took office. And, obviously it exploded this week. But the stories are not new. And, I think business owners knew something was coming. The bottom line is, there's incredible fear, incredible, uncertainty, and helplessness. The small businesses have no ability to do anything. I mean, a little while back, those who could afford to go get inventory ahead of time did. That's often very inefficient. Those who didn't have the cash couldn't do that. But that's a short-term fix. I mean, there's only so much inventory you can get. Look, we've got $3.3 trillion of imports in this country. It's coming from every direction, every product, every country. A small business owner may have 3, 4, 5 different things in their supply chain coming from vastly different places, and they have no control over it. They certainly don't have any control to start saying, "Well, we're gonna source this domestically." There are businesses that just can't do that, so they're helpless, and they are scared, and they are now watching their 401ks plummet as the market goes down. So I don't know how else to put it, but it's been coming, and it's even worse than they expected.
It feels like the entire apple cart of the economy got turned over. I guess it's going to take some time for things to settle. But I can't even get the words out of my mouth. I want to ask you if you have any advice to offer business owners. But it just, as you just put it, it just seems so helpless. I saw one article that the comments it made were, well, consider altering your supply chain. And as you just pointed out, I think anybody who could do that already did it. Some of them may have moved from China to Vietnam thinking that was going to save them, and obviously that didn't work out. The next thing on the list was adjust your prices. I think most businesses are probably aware of that. The last one was explore new opportunities, and it didn't really explain that, but it almost sounded like they were saying, have you thought about taking a job? Because this may be really, really difficult. Can you add anything? Is there any advice that you're trying to offer to your followers?
Well, quite frankly, other than hunkering down, and that is an option, deciding, figuring out what part of your market can absorb higher prices, figuring out whether you can tolerate lower profit margins on certain products. That may mean eliminating other products. So yes, I mean, what obviously can be done is you do like you do in any crisis, and businesses had to adjust during the pandemic, is you sort of figure out what can stay, what can go. That's probably going to mean, in many cases, laying off employees. It's certainly going to make, reduce sales and reduce profit margins. But yes, some businesses will be able to survive. And obviously that's got to be job one for them, is to figure out how to do that. But it's going to be incredibly painful. And you're right, they have no ability to, or limited ability to, adjust their supply chains. I mean, clothing. We have a clothing store, for example, a fellow who runs it on our national council. He can't get women's clothes. He can't get those clothes domestically. It's just a reality. And, this is something that's evolved over many decades now, that we don't have a clothing industry in this country anymore of any size. So, what can a small business owner do in a short period of time? Then they're looking at the big guys who can negotiate. They can negotiate. First of all, they can absorb a lot more, and they can negotiate waivers, and they can adjust more easily. They're still going to feel pain. Don't get me wrong. We're seeing that already. But for small business owners, it's really helplessness. And yes, they have no choice but to hunker down and figure out they're in survival mode.
In almost any crisis, there are opportunities and people who do manage to find them and seize them and take advantage of them. The alleged premise of these tariffs is that it is going to bring manufacturing back and that people are going to start opening more factories and trying to do things here, although that's at cross purposes to some extent with some of the tariffs, which makes it more expensive to bring in raw materials. And the uncertainty makes it more difficult because who knows how long these tariffs are going to last. But have you seen any evidence of that? Is there any indication you've heard from your followers that people are trying to look into more opportunities to actually make stuff here?
We have a situation, where manufacturing in this country has gone offshore, and we're talking 30, 40 years. So you don't fix it overnight. And for most small businesses, not only do they not have 30, 40 years, they may not have 30, 40 days in some cases. So I don't even know what that means. If you're in yes, some businesses are obviously looking for opportunities to get domestic supplies if they can. Often those supplies will be more expensive. And so, but the options are limited depending on the industry they're in. I just mentioned the clothing business. People, we got a fellow who runs an ice cream store, and he imports his sprinkles from Canada. Who knew? He imports vanilla and chocolate from elsewhere. Sure, there may be domestic manufacturers. There's no way that domestic manufacturing can pick up the slack in a lot of these areas. And we can argue, well, maybe we shouldn't have gone this way, but we do have a global international order where commerce is completely interconnected. Well, yes, but even so, the choice is going to be I import and pay more, or I don't get the product. So, how many businesses can pivot to, well, I'm going to change my product, so I only have domestic supplies. It's absurd. There's no way most small businesses can pivot. What they can do is they can hunker down. They can expect to have, probably lay off employees. They can expect to have lower profit margins. And, we may be entering a recession now because of all of this. And so they're going to have smaller sales. So will some survive? Yes. But it's going to be painful, and some are not going to survive.
Are you doing any kind of outreach to your members? Is there anything that you can offer them?
Absolutely. We have formed a rapid response coalition in partnership with numerous partners across the country, other business organizations, local chambers, CDFIs, business support organizations, folks who are supporting businesses across the country. We and they are soliciting stories from business owners so we can then communicate to policymakers. We're obviously continuing to do research. We're talking to policymakers, both on Capitol Hill and when we can in the administration. And we're doing a lot of media. And that's about all we can do right now. That's all we can do. We can do that. I think at the end of the day, hearing more voices from actual business owners on the ground and partner organizations who are supporting them, who have, by the way, relationships with policymakers from their districts, red, blue, and otherwise, that's the only way we're going to maybe get some of this changed, is for policymakers to hear that. We have seen a few signs, at least in the Senate, of some pushback among Republicans. One of the things we're concerned about, the CDFI fund was eliminated, and this is a fund that provides support to mission-driven lenders, community finance development institutions across the country. Well, we found out that those exist in urban, rural, red, blue states and districts, and actually there was a pretty strong pushback, bipartisan pushback from the Senate at least. We haven't seen it from the House, of senators, both Republicans and Democrats, saying, hey, don't do this. So we're going to need more of that. We're going to need stories. We're going to need data. We're going to need the voices of small business owners speaking up. And that's about all we can do. Yes, at the same time, businesses are going to have to do what they can do business-wise, but our job is to make those voices heard and figure out how we can get people to see the light.
If somebody listening to this is interested in sharing their story, where can they go to connect with your rapid response team?
go to smallbusinessmajority.org. That's smallbusinessmajority.org. And if they're interested in resources, we have a resources site called venturize.org.
Great. But smallbusinessmajority.org is to share the story.
That would be share stories, and that would be that's where the advocacy is happening, and that's where all the sort of the hub of all the communications work we're doing around this.
So, obviously, tariffs were the big story this past week, and the impact on the stock markets. But there's a lot of other stuff going on. What else are you paying attention to?
Well, the other two immediate things we're paying attention to are the attacks on small business programs. I've already alluded to one, the elimination of the CDFI fund, elimination of the Minority Business Development Agency. This one is incredible. A reduction of the Small Business Administration staff by 43%, simultaneously asking the SBA to take on $1.6 trillion worth of student loans. I mean, what is the connection between student loans and the SBA? Risk to the State Small Business Credit Initiative. There are now cuts coming in, staffing cuts in the Treasury Department. There's $5 billion in SSBCI money that it's been obligated, but it hasn't been distributed. And, Mr. Musk and his minions may show up and just take that money. The list goes on. And USDA funds a lot of rural programs, cuts there. We just found out literally the same day that these tariffs went into effect that the Trump administration has terminated the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. It's been around for 40 years, has centers in all 50 states that provide consulting services to small manufacturers. So there's just an incredible list of programs.
That one seems particularly ironic since
yes.
The tariffs allegedly are designed to bring manufacturing back to this country.
Yes, we took note of that the same day these tariffs went into effect, the MEP was eliminated. The other thing is immigration. There are the mass deportations that are happening have instilled fear in businesses and those who work for them. Let me stress, as we've all seen, this is not just undocumented immigrants. This is documented immigrants who are being snatched off the street because they may have written, they may have expressed an opinion on social media. So you have you have employees that aren't even coming to work. And so it's legal and yes, undocumented as well. There are 11 plus documented immigrants in this country, and they're all working. And many are working in small businesses. So, we don't need to have mass deportation. We need a sensible immigration system that's going to allow the workforce that we need to come in and work legally and support our business. Obviously the economy is being really harmed by these tariffs, but the other thing it's harmed by is not having enough workers. And you've looked at America over the years. The reason we've grown, the reason we've become an economic powerhouse is continuing growth in immigrant labor. So that is also terrifying business owners and obviously their employees.
That's such a difficult issue. I've struggled with that myself because I try to reach out to business owners to talk about it, and it's not a topic they want to discuss, at least not publicly by name, because they don't want to call attention and create any potential problems for themselves, for their employees. But I think there's a lot of confusion out there about just what business owners can and should be doing. Have you seen that as well?
Yes. Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we are soliciting stories across the country on tariffs, people willing to speak up, but those who are concerned about the immigration situation, we've got media asking us for stories, and many businesses, understandably, are afraid to talk about it. So those stories are harder to get out there because of the obvious retribution. And again, so look, small businesses, like any other business, are supposed to make sure that the folks who are working for them are legal. But we're seeing people who are here working legally being deported because they have a tattoo or because they said something on social media. So a business owner can't control what someone has done, whether they have a tattoo or something they've done in their private life. And beyond that, the fact that our economy depends upon all of the immigrants, documented otherwise, who are working, is just a reality. And you start to eliminate that. They already were experiencing workforce issues coming out of the pandemic, and that just adds to their problems. And yes, they're afraid to be public about it.
Do you have a sense of how much risk business owners are at if they are employing undocumented workers? I have talked to a number of business owners about this. I get a mixed message. Some believe that nobody's really going there, but there have been examples of business owners who have been prosecuted over the years for having undocumented workers. Do you have any sense of what people should be thinking on that issue?
Well, look, I mean, business owners are supposed to use best efforts to determine that their workers are working legally. As I said, though, there are a lot of employees who are here legally who are being rounded up as well. So it's not limited to undocumented.
Well, there are also people here who are undocumented but have managed to obtain fake ID, and the owner may or may not know that.
Correct. I think business owners, for the most part, do what they can, but they are also faced with an economic reality of needing workers. So they do what they can, and if the employee has figured out a way to show that he or she's here legally, even if he or she's not, the business owner can only do so much. I'm not here to say that business owners should skirt the law. I'm here to say that most business owners do what they can. But I'm also here to say that there's an economic reality. If you have 11 to 12 million undocumented workers in this country, and they are absolutely needed in the economy, and they're working fruitfully, it doesn't really solve the problem to basically say all of them should stop working tomorrow.
I think I saw that you recently testified at a hearing in Congress. What was that about?
Well, ostensibly, the hearing was entitled Regulation. It was about regulations, and the Republican majority, it was the House Small Business Committee, wanted to talk about the problems with regulations. And however, the conversation for at least half of the hearing was on all these other topics. We're talking about tariffs, immigration programs being cut, SBA, because that's really what's on people's mind right now. And look, when it comes to regulations, we have a system in place to assess the balance, the cost-benefit analysis. And there's a lot of talk about the cost of regulations. There wasn't a lot of talk about the benefit of regulations. And there are benefits of regulations. That's a level playing field, protects small business owners and others from financial scams. We obviously have to have regulations when you're with certain products. If you're trying to establish a more renewable economy, you need that. And quite frankly, there's a lot of talk about, how regulations increased under President Biden. Well, there was also a huge amount of money that was going into new manufacturing. Alongside that, you have to have regulations. So again, we need to look at the cost versus the benefit. And we're the first to say there are going to undoubtedly be regulations out there where the cost outweighs the benefit, and we should address that. We have adequate systems in place, and so what's being proposed by the Republican majority was to add new layers of oversight, so to speak, that would actually muck up the system, make it more complicated for small business owners. The other thing that we're in favor of is making sure that these agencies are funded such that and the SBA and the Office of Advocates of the SBA and the Ombudsman at the SBA are sufficiently funded so they can advise small businesses about how they can better comply with regulations. A lot of this isn't whether the regulations are good or not. It's helping small businesses understand how to comply with them. So I think what's happened is that regulations have been turned into an ideological weapon. All regulations are bad. Let's just look at the cost. And it almost turns into this ideology instead of looking at it as very pragmatic. Roll up your sleeves, figure out what's the cost benefit of a particular regulation, and address it that way.
I think you make an interesting point with the removal of these programs that are designed to help small businesses. Having that happen at the exact same time that this crisis hits, where business models that once worked no longer work, and everybody's scrambling to figure out what they're going to be able to do, and the support infrastructure is being torn down simultaneously. I don't even. Do you have any hope that that can be stopped and turned around in, the near future?
All we can do is make the case and express the opinions of small business owners, and talk to, obviously through the media, but also talk directly to policymakers, both in Congress and in the administration. And no, I mean, if you're talking about people taking a meat cleaver, slash and burn focus on government, you're not going to have the resources within government to figure these things out and get them right. And so, in order to figure out whether a regulation has more benefits than cost or vice versa, you have to have the resources to figure that out. And by slashing and burning in all these agencies, including the SBA, you are putting that in jeopardy.
Did I miss anything, John? Anything else that you're paying attention to at the moment?
Well, obviously, we're looking at the budget, and that right now you're talking about. First of all, we can't even figure out what's going on in the House versus the Senate. You've got the House refusing to follow any of the reconciliation rules that are being set up by the Senate, arguing, well, we can do our own thing. The Senate can do its own thing when you absolutely need to have common reconciliation rules to get a budget through. You've got budgets that are being proposed where there's no way that you can continue to fund Medicaid. There are over 7 million small business owners and, more importantly, employees on Medicaid. There's no way
people don't think of that as a business issue.
Yeah,
but it is.
Yeah. Well, the ACA is. You have the premium tax credits that have enabled many business owners and their employees to get additional support to buy healthcare on the exchanges. Those are scheduled to go away at the end of the year. There's no way these budgets that they're passing are going to be able to maintain those. That's going to be a direct hit on small businesses, many of whom, the majority of participants in the marketplaces are small business owners, employees, or self-employed people. So there's no way that that's going to work either. And then it's all setting itself up for a continuation or even expansion of a tax system that overly favors big corporations and the very wealthy, and doesn't allow for any kind of tax reform that's going to push the tax benefits down to the smaller business. We're proposing a reform of the so-called 199A pass-through deduction, which right now heavily favors the few pass-through entities they're the wealthiest. 73% of the benefit goes to the top 4%. We're proposing to reform that and make sure that those benefits are going to the smallest businesses. And again, nothing that they're doing on the Hill right now reflects any understanding of what needs to happen.
John Arensmeyer is founder and CEO of Small Business Majority. Thanks for taking the time, John.
Thanks for having me, Lauren.
Have a great week, everyone.